Hello everyone, my name is Matthias. I am from Switzerland and I am a volunteer for the European Scout region. We work with strategy, strategic management and governance. Today I'm talking a little bit about governance in Scouting and especially about the role a national board plays in governance. What is governance? Governance is concerned with the systems and processes that ensure the overall direction, effectiveness and supervision and accountability of an organization. That's a basic definition. We identified for Scout organizations in particular 3 important pillars of good governance. And you can already see here in the middle one of the 3 pillars is actually an effective and efficient national board, a good leadership. Secondly, policies and procedures. We need that to have a stable, sustainable organization. And yes, we need also a strategy, a strategic plan and a vision and mission. But today, as I said, we talk about the middle part, the middle pillar, an effective and efficient national board. Here you can see some governance roles for a national board that we found in a handbook of non-profit governance. I will not go into details about all of them. If you want to read them, you can now stop the video and read them. But for example, you see here it's about finances, it's about legal and ethical integrity, it's about strategy planning, strategic thinking, it's about supporting the effectiveness of the executive level, of the operational level, supporting the CEO, also provide oversight, and very important also making sure that there are the resources available to your operational team, to your staff, to your volunteers to implement your strategy. Also, by the way, to your groups within the organization. For the Scouting context in the European Scout region, we identified 6 basic roles for a national board. You can summarize them however you want, however it fits you best. We identified those roles: policy making, monitoring and evaluation, strategic planning, financial planning, communicating and representing, leadership and supporting. I will talk quickly about all of them. Leadership and supporting role. Here it is, for example, about recruiting people that help you implement the strategy. In particular, implement an executive leadership that can then recruit again a team to implement all the strategies and the strategic priorities you identified. In particular, as I said before, the CEO, the chief executive of your organization. The national board also supports the implementation of the strategy, supports the chief executive, but it doesn't be involved in the operational work itself. It makes decisions that provide a guidance to the organization, and it also, that's an important part in Scouting, especially with volunteers, it establishes a recognition and appraisal policy for the volunteers, but also for the staff. Don't forget that. And also leadership is about continuous improvement in the sense of personal development. So you need to make sure that a national board member also has the chance to develop themselves. Some people, they think, wow, when they reach the national board, they're on the top of the organization and they know everything, they don't have to learn. And that's absolutely not true. The contrary is true. You still have to continuously learn. You need to have a continuous training, especially if you're a new board member, if you're put directly from being a group leader or being a regional leader into a national leadership position. It's very important. Policy making. As you remember, one of the pillars of good governance was policies and procedures. So the role of the national board is actually to establish and set up these policies and also to make sure the people within your organization, but sometimes also outside your organization, your stakeholders, that they are aware of these policies, of the content, that they live and work and do their activities according to that policies. So you need to make sure that they are disseminated throughout the organization. Use them in trainings, train your people how to use the policies and about the content of the policies. Then monitoring and evaluation role. So here, yes, it is about evaluating the performance regarding the implementation of the strategy. That's very important. You have your KPIs to evaluate that. You also need to make sure that you continuously monitor the progress and that you also make adaptations if it's necessary, if something goes wrong. But it's also about evaluating the performance of your teams, also of the national board, of the executive team, of working groups. You don't necessarily do the evaluation yourself as a national board, but you need to be aware of the results of the evaluation, and you need to make sure that the learning process is in place to don't do the same mistakes again next time. Strategic planning role. For us in scouting, sometimes very difficult because many organizations, they are not used to do that. So the national board is a strategic function. You need to be discussing about mission and vision and values and about strategic priorities. You are not implementing the strategy yourself, you are supporting the implementation. You are also responsible together with the executive level, together with the chief executive, to set up a proper, inclusive, transparent, motivational strategic planning process. You need to include all your stakeholders that you need to include, and you also need to include all your members. And you also need to be aware what's going good and what's going not so good, and also how your society, how the society around you, how the environment you're working in is changing. So the next role is the financial planning role. You are not spending the money necessarily as a national board, but you're making sure that enough financial resources are available to implement your strategy, to do your activities. You also provide oversight in financial terms. You, together with the chief executive who helps you prepare the budget, you approve the budget and you approve the annual accounts. And you also provide a fundraising policy. You make sure that the fundraising goes according to the guidelines you want to establish in your organization, according to what we would say good practice or best practice. And finally, communicating and representing role. You also have a representative function as a national board. You go to events, you are invited to talk about your organization in other organizations, within your stakeholders' organizations, and you are a face of your organization in that sense. You provide image for your organization. You are also responsible to set up a communication strategy, that you have something like that for the internal communication, but also for the external communication. And here also you are responsible to provide an annual report, as it says annually at least. Let me highlight some of the things that a lot of times they are forgotten. One of the things I already mentioned, it's personal development or personal progress of national board members. As I said, many people, they think they reach the top, they cannot learn anything anymore if they are in the national board, but it's, as I said, the contrary. And you need to have a continuous training in the national board, especially if there are new members. Maybe the older, more experienced members provide parts of that training, but also maybe sometimes you have external people providing parts of the induction training or continuous training for national board members. So it's not that you don't need to do that anymore. you need to continuously improve yourself also as a national board members, as a team basically also, and you need to have your personal development, because as we all know, this is at the end of the day one of the core methods of our movement. The second thing I want to highlight here is the difference between operational and strategic work. It's something where we are sometimes really struggling. As I said, sometimes you are elected into a national board position out of a group leader role, for example, in a very young age, and you are overwhelmed by the responsibility that you are put into. And here it's a different role. You are providing oversight, you do strategic thinking, but you are not running activities anymore. And some people we have seen in many organizations throughout Europe, but also in the whole world, they are really struggling with that. So make sure that all your national board members, they understand what it means to work strategically compared to what it means to run activities, to plan projects, to implement projects, and to go weekly on the activities with kids and young people. It's not the same. And here, this model you can see here provides you some ideas of what kind of questions you ask if you are on a strategic level, and what kind of questions you are more focusing on if you're on an operational level. So where do you want to go? How can you get there? Who shall be involved? What resources we need? That's all more of a strategic thinking, and then it goes more into the implementation part. And very important here as well, it's an interactive thing. So it's not one body is the national board and the other is the executive team, but you really need to have a very, very close relationship, work together between executive team and strategic team, national board and executive team, but also between staff and volunteers. You can only achieve your goals all together. And finally, here on the screen, you can now see some examples of where the board has some responsibility and where the chief executive or the executive team have some responsibilities, and where they have some shared responsibilities. You can now again stop the video if you want to read everything, but I will just highlight one or two examples. Policy making and planning. Here, yes, the board, you are responsible to establish the policies and is approving the guidelines, but you also need the support of the chief executive, of the executive team, to provide the content of the guidelines, and also they are at the end of the day the ones working with these guidelines. Budget and finance, the same. You approve as a national board, you approve the budget, but the daily budgetary work is done on an executive level. They know what they spend. Some people, they say, yes, the national board, they provide the resources, and the executive team, they're spending it. Maybe it's that simple. Sometimes it's not that simple, but just to make you aware of the really differences between operational work and strategic thinking, meaning being in a national board. So that's basically it in a very brief nutshell. If you need support for anything like that, if you want to understand your role better as a national board member, or if you want to know more about some of the elements of good governance, we can provide you some expertise, we can provide you resources. Some of them you find on services.scout.org. You can also send us an email to europe@scout.org, and we will make sure that you get the help you need. Apart from that, thanks for listening, and if you have any feedback, let us know. We are also always trying to improve our support in the sense of these kind of videos and online resources. Have a good time and good luck with your governance.